Right, a very good morning, and then it's really another day in paradise. Beautiful London weather. Everybody looking summerish in their outfit. Right, so we are in week 20 of this bribery trial of former Minister of Petroleum, Diezani Alice Magreke, our brother Bishop Doye Agama, and the third defendant, Olatimbo Ayinde, started yesterday, week number 20, having had 2 weeks adjournment because one member of the jury had an holiday booked before this trial started in January. The judge gave the jurors a quick recap yesterday. After being away for 2 weeks, she refreshed their memory. It took about half an hour going through the route to verdict and legal direction. So she did that yesterday, and then she sent them back to the jury room to get on with their deliberations. Yesterday, everybody was really, I've always compared this trial to like a boxing match. And like I said, it's like we are in the championship rounds. So championship rounds is any time from round 11 in boxing, or actually the final round in round 12, it's been a long batch. We're in round 12. You don't know what can happen. Yesterday, when we had, anytime you hear with parties in the case to courtroom number so and so, everybody is really on the edge of their seat watching, could it be courtroom number 2? But the only time we had all the parties in the Diezani's case to courtroom number 2 yesterday was about 20 minutes to 4 or thereabout, but they didn't have a verdict. So the judge sent them home, sent the jurors home. The 11 members of the jury sent them home yesterday to say, look, go home. And the judge has her own way of introducing humor to it. Not only say, look, put this case out of your mind. Of course, she reminded them of the rules. Don't search online. Don't do any research. Don't talk to yourselves. Don't do anything when you go home. This case, when you come back today, you continue your deliberation. So that was how it panned out yesterday. And today, in about less than an hour, 10:15, the jurors will be back right here at Sodo Crown Court to continue with their deliberations. Yesterday, as well, you remember yesterday I told you before we went on holiday, before that adjournment on the 29th of May, there was a jury note. The judge didn't read that jury note yesterday. And probably I think that was because having been away for 2 weeks, she just wanted to remind the jurors where they left it. I mean, you can imagine you and I being away from our desk for 2 weeks. When you come back, you are probably still in holiday mood. So the judge did not read the jury note that came on Friday, May 29th, okay? She didn't read that note, so definitely she will have to read that note today. Definitely she will have to, because she has always told them, if you have any question, send me a note. There are 2 instances when we get back to court. One is if there's a jury note, if they don't have any, if they are stuck anywhere, they need clarification, there's a jury note. And secondly, when there is a verdict, there is also, they send that to the judge. So the note that came in on Friday, May 29th, before the court was adjourned till yesterday, the judge will definitely have to read that today, because that might be a tipping point. I'm sure the jurors were stuck. That was why they sent that jury note Friday, May 29th. But because we went on holiday on that day, they resumed yesterday. So the judge didn't prioritize that. She only reminded them, went through the summary. Yesterday, she did a summary of what the jurors need to consider on the route to verdict. We call it route to verdict. So that was what she did yesterday, and she reminded them when they need to make their assessment. So she went through that yesterday for about half an hour before sending them out. And again, when they were sent back to the jury room yesterday, after going through the summary again, she just, they took the oath again. The jury bailiff makes them to swear the oath to say, look, we didn't discuss with anybody. We didn't talk to ourselves. Everything that we will decide this case on is based on the evidence you had in this room. So in this courtroom, rather. So they did that yesterday, and that is what they're going to do again today when the court starts in less than an hour, 10:15. The jurors will be back here, just on the way to the court this morning. I saw one of the defendants, just by London Bridge there. But this case it's really putting people, we are, like I said, we are on the edge of the seat. I was having lunch with two lawyers yesterday. One of them was saying, look, he had been in a more complex case than this that took 6 months, but it took the jurors in that particular case just 3 days to reach a verdict. But every case is different. So this case too is complex, but the jurors have spent 2 weeks. We don't know where they are. But when the judge reads the jury note number 2, which she didn't get time to read yesterday, we will have an idea of where the jurors are. But again, so that is it. It's been a long, long, long trial from January 19. This is week number 20, and nobody has a clue. This morning before 7 o'clock, one of my colleagues sent me, she speculated. She said, we're going to have a verdict. I said, nobody knows. It's speculation. We don't know where exactly the jurors are. It is only when we see a note from them that we will know. Don't forget what I said earlier. When they have a verdict, they communicate that to the jury bailiff. The jury bailiff will contact the clerk to the judge, and then we're going to have that announcement that come to courtroom number 2, we have a verdict. And that is when the real tension, the real agony will start, because, you can just imagine saying we have a verdict. We don't know. That verdict could be the road down to prison, the road to freedom. So it really tense in this place. Yesterday, of course, the 3 defendants were here. Diezani was there, all black, trouser, top, blouse, white, black, what's the name? Defendant number 2, Bishop Doya Gama, joined from Manchester. He had his collar on, bishop's outfit with a long cross in there, hopeful that, the outcome will be there. Number 3 defendant, Olatimba Idetu, was there with their team. Everybody was here. They are just waiting. During break, when we were waiting from around 11 till 4, we saw the prosecutor, the team for the people, and everybody is just waiting. You couldn't just go outside of the court because anything can happen. And like I've said before, anytime there's a verdict and the court clerk for courtroom number 2 makes the announcement, we're going to rush to the courtroom, and then the defendant, the court clerk is going to ask them once the jurors come in, and then the 4-man or the 4-woman, we don't know whether it's a 4-man they have or a 4-woman, we don't know yet. So that is when the 4-man or the 4-woman takes over. So just giving you heads up how things pan out when there is a verdict. The 4-man or the 4-woman they come to court, the court clerk we then ask them, have you reached a verdict on which all of you agree? The 4-man or the 4-woman will then stand up and say, yes, we have reached a verdict. And then the court clerk will start to ask. And then after that, we ask all the 3 defendants to stand up. We say, defendants, so and so. Can you stand, please? Then they stand up in the dock. Bishop will stand up right there where he's joining from Manchester. And then the court clerk is going to ask, on count number 1, how do you find the defendant? Then the 4-man or the 4-woman will say, we find the defendant so and so. So that is how it's going to pan out. Then we go through all the count. Count number 2, how do you find the defendant? The 4-man or the 4-woman will respond. Count number 3, how do you find the defendant? The 4-man or the 4-woman will respond. This is how until they get to count number 8. So that is how it's going to pan out when they reach a verdict. But before then, that could happen today. That could be later in the week. We don't know. But like my colleague sent me a note this morning before 7 a.m. She said, we're going to have a verdict. Nobody knows. I said, if we have a verdict, that could be the beginning of a prophetess career. But we don't know. We are just waiting. Even the judge doesn't know. The judge reminded them yesterday that it is you, the jurors, that will determine this case. I have given you legal directions. You've had the evidence. And she reminded them again, even though Kola Loko, Gideon Mokore, Prince Momo, Benedict Peters, and Igor Sanomi, they are parties in this case. But she said, look, they are not here. Forget that they are not here. You're going to decide this case on the evidence you had in this courtroom. And for those who had written evidence, she told them, she reminded them again, look, you will have to make your own assessment as to whether that witness statement is believable to them. So in making their judgment, in arriving at the verdict, they're going to take account of, legal direction. They're going to use their own common sense. They're going to use their assessment. They're going to remember what they have had. The only person who testified in this case among the 3 defendants was Diezani. So they're going to recall all of that. And then when it is time, if they get to a particular place where they need to make their own common sense. But that is how it was yesterday, and that is how it's been. So 2 weeks later, after the jury was sent out, we still don't know what they have reached. We still don't know where they are. But jury note, which they sent in on May 29th, Friday, which the judge didn't read because that jury note came late on that day. The judge didn't read that note yesterday. The practice is that if there's a jury note, the judge will ask the prosecutor to read that note, and then she will answer. They will then answer the question. I remember what I said yesterday. The last jury note on Friday, May 29th, that jury note that was answered was that the jurors asked what caused this case to start. The prosecutor said, I don't know, I don't remember, because this trial is technically over. They had submitted the case file. She said she can't remember. And the judge too said, I don't know. And then the second question in that jury note was that what motivated the investigation to be started by the National Crime Agency? The prosecutor said, I don't know, I can't remember, because they have closed this case. Technically, the document, the files have been submitted. So she said, I don't know. The judge too told them on that occasion, I don't know, sorry, I can't help you. So this case is really is complex. Of course, it's had its twists and turns. And then so hopefully, I hope my colleague whose ministry, whose career as a prophetess might be launched, I hope she's correct. But that apart, seriously, everybody is been a long road. Another lawyer I spoke to yesterday, we were having lunch like that. I said, look, we just want this thing to be over. It's been long. It's really stressful. And if we who are not parties to this case are feeling long, and it's really been long, actually, you can imagine the defendant. They might look relaxed, they look cool, but I can almost tell you that inside them, they are really wishing, let this cup pass over us. Let us know our fate so that we get on to the next chapter of our lives. But hopefully, the 11 jurors, hopefully they will take us out of this suspense, out of this mystery, this waiting game. Hopefully they will end it today. But whether they end it or not today, the judge has a jury note which she has to read today. And that will give us a clue. And that again could be the tipping point. So hopefully I'll see you at the end of today or tomorrow. Enjoy your day.